you being the young guy wanted to give it a kick in the can. It's not always easy because then you might be butting heads with guys who have been doing this for 30 years and they don't see it this way. So
Yep.
what was some of your first objective in trying to convince these people who were essentially your client that you may actually be onto something? Welcome back to the show. Welcome to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing in Quebec. Today, we are very fortunate to have Jordan Owen, a co-founder of SquareFeet.ai, which is an artificial intelligence startup predicting price per square foot, I guess.
Yep.
Something like that.
Basically like that. It's not only prices, it's we're looking at rents, we're looking at single family homes.
Okay, so
basically
a whole bunch of other factors.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jordan, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. A friend of ours, Alex Lafortune, put us in touch, and he said that we'd hit it off. And when I looked at your website, I thought it was very interesting because I've been quite attracted to artificial intelligence, and I strongly believe it can help us in so many ways in our lives. We just have to program it properly and train the machine properly so that eventually it can do a lot of tasks for us. So before we get into all of the fun stuff and the entrepreneurial side, how did you ever get started in real estate?
Well, I'm fortunate to be part of a family business in real estate development. So I've been working in real estate development on the construction sites since I was a young kid. So I've been versed in real estate. All of our conversations have been about real estate for as long as I could remember. In school, I didn't have the chance to study real estate because at McGill there is no real estate program. But right after I graduated, I became a real estate broker.
Okay.
Which was my take to learn how to sell in real estate. I think selling is a massive skill that everyone should learn how to do. It's not technical. It's really soft. It's knowing how to speak. It's knowing how to, how to get to, how to share and how to communicate with people so that you could generate a rapport and seem trustworthy. I think it's super important. But soon after, I was working as a broker for about 18 months, and then went to work for the family business Mondev in real estate development.
Okay.
As I was working in that field, I was responsible for real estate pricing. So we developed tons of multi-res, and I was pricing our portfolio. And the way that we were doing it is really the way that the industry does it at the moment, which is really manual intensive, by hand, gut feel. So I would basically print out all of the sales plans of every single unit that we were developing and write on the piece of paper what we're pricing it at. And
oh, wow.
And that's really like, it's when you think of how to price, it's like, why is real estate development so barbaric compared to many other industries? And it's just because there's the lack of data. It's a legacy industry. And I was always wrong. Every time I would present the price list to, my uncle or my father, I would always have made mistakes because they know better than me, obviously, because like of their experience and the way I was doing.
Experience. You can't really compare.
Yeah. So then as a young buck, I wanted to compete, and I started to work on developing systems to effectively price. So built a really preliminary system back on Excel, pricing the qualitative attributes of all these units, like the views, the layouts, all these things, using data to make these decisions. And that was 95% of the battle. That improved it dramatically. So like that, they started to get a lot of confidence in the way that I was pricing it, and that was really effective. And we made a lot of money actually just being able to price that way. And then I went to school. I went to MIT to
Mhm.
study real estate development, and now I'm back with the pandemic, starting SquareFeet.ai.
Wow, that's a good. That's a really good transition. I mean, so you said you went back to school to do, I guess, to do a master's last year.
Yeah, I started September 2019. It was actually it's a dual master's program in real estate development and city planning.
Oh.
But when COVID hit in March, we were all forced to come home. So I did school online, but
Mhm.
while I was doing school online, I wanted to be more productive. School online is really awful. It's really difficult. You don't really learn much, very little networking. It's
Yeah,
I wouldn't recommend it.
very difficult on
Um,
the motivation.
very difficult. So
Yeah.
I focused my energy on starting a business. I started a face mask business in March, and that was very successful when we started, called BNLA. And since we started that, a team of people are managing it, and we're using that to fund Square Feet.
Very nice, very nice. And so
And I
that
put, yeah,
this mask business is still operating today.
still operating. It's much less than it was back in
Hmm.
March, April, May, June. That
For
was
sure.
like it was a crazy time. But now it's still operating. We have one person managing the whole thing from start to finish, which is great. So we don't have to do anything with that.
Mhm.
But yeah, now everyone is focused on Square Feet.
For sure, for sure. And just there's so much you already said and shared, and that I like to unpack. The I'm just trying to understand exactly like what was your thought process when you were trying to develop this tool, realizing that, as you said, your father and your uncle kind of laughed at you when you gave them the paper pricing, and I could exactly imagine the situation where you're like, I've got to find a better way. Let me at least
Yeah,
do an Excel sheet, and let's start with square footage, and then all the attributes of the condos. Let's say it's a 2 bedroom on the third floor, two
yeah.
bathrooms, so on and so forth. Like I can imagine all those columns. How did you start to link it all up together? Because I don't want to oversimplify, but you could just say it's a deep regression analysis, but it goes a little bit
It
beyond.
is. So the preliminary version was basically a multivariate linear regression.
Hmm.
That's all it was. And the way it came about is really from the conversation. So I remember showing them the price list, and they said, "Why is this one more expensive than that one?" And then you would have completely forgotten because you had done it 2 days ago. You did
Yeah.
it on a piece of paper. So at that point, I was thinking, how can I remember why I priced it like that? So I started looking at, how many beds, how big is it, um, what are the qualitative attributes, how is the layout, what's the column spacing, where's the kitchen, how big's the living room, how big is the bedroom, smaller than 100 square feet, is there a terrace, how's the view? There's like tons and tons and it's a massive, it's probably the most complicated Sudoku problem you could think of
Yeah.
that needed to be solved. So
Mhm.
yeah,
And a lot of them must be binary. It's a yes or a no, and then a lot of them are actual have data. Like square footage
hmm
is a number, whereas terrace is a yes or no answer. So
also the terrace size, because there's some terraces that are gigantic, some are
good
small.
point. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a very good point. So you mentioned that there real estate is an old industry. It's a legacy, and I'm sure you've heard so many times, "Wow, we do it this way because that's how we've always done it." And
Yeah.
you being the young guy, wanted to give it a kick in the can. It's not always easy because then you might be butting heads with guys who have been doing this for 30 years and they don't see it this way. So,
Yeah.
what was some of your first objective in trying to convince these people who are essentially your client that you may actually be onto something?
So right now we're really in that phase. We're in the customer acquisition phase, and we're seeing that every day. The clients that we've onboarded was really from our really strong real estate network. They believe us. So those guys are willing to take the risk with us. But a lot of our marketing and client acquisition is cold calling. So
Mhm.
I'm often on the phone selling the product um, to you know a bunch of different real estate developers looking to show them the value of our product. And many times we get a response saying, "I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm not going to have a computer tell me what to do." But
Actually, you should.
Yeah, but it's just it's getting the right. It's it's just because we're in a field that's relatively new. There's no one doing what we're doing at this point.
Mhm.
Um, so it's really getting the early adopters, and those guys are typically younger.
Yeah. But at the same time, it must be quite challenging because the Montreal or Quebec real estate development market is controlled by maybe two handful of companies. So once you've gone around those guys, like where does it really
Yeah.
go to?
Well, there are massive real estate developers, and those are like probably a dozen,
Mhm.
but there are hundreds and hundreds of little guys that we're also reaching out to.
Okay, so those are the contractors slash developers who are building like a 10 unit somewhere.
Yeah, 30 unit, 40 unit out in Laval and
Mhm.
Poisson and whatever.
Okay. Do you have kind of a minimum threshold number of units where your solution starts to become applicable?
Yeah. Well, 30 plus is it's not a like we don't ask for anything like if someone has 15 units they want a price, we say okay. But
Mhm.
it really becomes more powerful the bigger the project. So 30 in my opinion is the minimum to see true value.
Okay. Okay. And so, in order to present the solution properly, I'm gonna make it simple. You essentially take all the attributes of all the units and you throw them into a system that tells you like what each unit should be sold for on a square foot basis.
Yeah, so the process starts before that. That's the second phase of the process. The first
Mhm.
phase is data acquisition.
Okay.
So how do you effectively price real estate? You need to know what the market is asking, and the way we do that is we collect tons of data on attributes. We on public data. So we look at census data. What's the population density, the income, the age, the what language do they speak? Then we look at transportation. How long does it take to walk to the nearest transport, metro station, bus station? How are the grocery stores in the area? Then we look at real estate prices. So we look at all the listings. What are one beds priced at, two beds, three beds? And we basically run it through a large machine learning algorithm that has a series of algorithms. We do image recognition for the kitchen quality to see if the kitchen has been redone, how nice is the bathroom. We basically rank all these things to really get the most effective AVM possible. And AVM is an automated valuation model.
Mhm.
So that's level one. So we get to the AVM and then we look at the attributes of the unit. So the views, the layout, the columns, where the kitchen is, how big is the bathroom, how big is the unit. Because you know that larger two beds are less expensive per square foot than smaller two beds. So there's
Yeah.
a ton of different attributes that we look at. Then we take that AVM, spread it throughout the project, and then we optimize the sales through demand-based optimization. So, for example, let's say it's basically the airplane pricing model, but for real estate. So if you're looking on cheapflights.com, flights from Montreal to Toronto, if a lot of people are looking at that flight at any given time, the price is going to go up. It's
Mhm.
the exact same thing for what SquareFeet.ai does. We do demand based pricing.
But where are you able to collect this data from? Like, how do you know how many people are searching for a two-bedroom apartment in Rosemont?
So at this point, the way the algorithm works is that we're only looking at transactions. So that's why the more transaction volume there is in a single building, we're basically creating a closed environment. We're looking at all the individual types of units and we're creating a demand and supply curve. So give you the most basic version, one beds, two beds, three beds, but there are
Yeah.
many more clusters that we look at. Let's say two beds are selling faster than one beds. That's demand pricing will increase the two beds price. We also do that for clusters of units. So units within a specific size that have a specific view, all
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Okay. Makes sense. So the top three floors, for example, would obviously be
That's in a
priced
cluster.
higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Wow.
the reason why this is important is because this is exactly what we used to do back at Mondev, and the real estate development process, once you start selling, it's really, it's a party, you know, it goes really fast and you're selling extremely quickly. And if you forget to look at the prices and the sales for even a week, and a week flies by because they're busy doing so many different things, you could lose a lot of money. You could make a big mistake if you don't look at your prices and your sales for, let's say, a week and a half. You could sell all your underpriced units, and then you left like a couple $100,000 on the table.
Yeah, because it's easy to, you know, to omit like 5 or 10K here and there, but as you said, when you start to apply that over dozens of units, and God knows it goes fast in large towers, it could make a significant difference at the end. Have you had some clients that you've taken through the full I was going to say sales and production cycle that have been able to come back to you with tangible numbers in terms of the gain they made versus previous projects?
Yeah, so, well, we haven't had the opportunity to launch a new project yet because we have started the development of this product about 7 months ago. And real estate development is very slow. But what we have done is we've taken the bare bones code, the algorithm, and we've run historical analysis on past projects. So we go to a client and we say, give me your past project that you did in 2015, give me your sales velocity, and we'll show you how our algorithm would have changed pricing. And at this point, you know, it's very functional. It's, you know, it's super logical, very, you know, easy to comprehend, and it has real value. What we've seen is 2 to 3% in optimization.
Okay, which widely pays for your services.
Way more, yeah. The value prop. So like one way we sell the product is by showing, look, real estate developer, if you, for a 100-unit project, even if we optimize your prices by 1%, 1% is a third of what we expect. You're going to make on a 100-unit project $300,000, and you're going to pay us $20,000. So they're making 280 grand of profit on, you know, the worst case scenario.
And now that I understand a little bit more how your product and solution works, as you said, like your market is, let's say, a couple of dozen firms for the large developer. On the smaller side, on the smaller project side, there is, you said 100, but you really need to be hired at the right moment when that developer is starting his project, because otherwise, if he goes too far, and maybe even if some of the financing is done, it might already be too late, because then he doesn't necessarily want to go back and change some of those numbers. Yet you're actually you're showing him you're showing him how to make more money. So it's, in terms of your value proposition and in the sales process, it's must be rather challenging.
It's grueling. Yeah, it's a very slow sale process, but that hasn't caused firms to not be successful in the past. There are many businesses that operate in slow sales processes, whatever. You just have to find a way around it. And what we do is we're constantly in touch with these real estate developers, and we're trying to add value for free throughout the process so that they think of us. They call us for pricing, we give it to them. We have it at the click of a button, so it's might as well provide it.
And next time around, they'll think of you, and maybe they'll involve you in the whole project. And I mean, I'm such a strong believer, and you have to want to help people. You have to give freebies. You have to all that, because that's how you build trust.
Yeah. That's exactly how we do it. We
Okay, and then I'm still I'm actually quite fascinated by the data side, because for me, you give me a data set, if it's over like 5,000 data points, like I get lost. But is it that, okay, I imagine you collect some data, for example, from StatsCan and then from Centris to a certain point, but like, where does your data come from?
It's from everywhere. So we started off, the problem with data acquisition is that you never have enough. You could always go further and further and get more and more data, because the more you have, the stronger platform you're going to have, and the bigger your barrier to entry. So right now we have over 3 million public listings, and that excludes all the census data, images. We have over 1 million images that we've analyzed through our algorithms and quantified. Yeah, so the data side is rather large. We're partnering with third parties. We're studying the website traffic, so the clicks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really a never-ending process.
When you say you analyze the site of the developer to track how buyers behave when they come and look at the units and the plans.
Yeah, so rather than just looking at right now, our algorithm just looks at sales velocity. Mm-hmm. We're partnering now with a CRM, an online CRM platform. So we're going to be linking through an API to their platform, and with that API, they're going to give us data on website traffic. So not only are we going to be able to look at the sales of each unit, we're also going to look at how long are people looking at certain units, which units are getting the most traffic, so you could do that kind of thing.
Yeah, makes sense. Wow. And then you mentioned it was 4 of you co-founders. Mm-hmm. Can you kind of give us an idea, walk us through like what were the first days like? Because 4 people, like you really need to have both your expertise and then your area of focus.
Yeah.
So how was it at the beginning?
It's not easy, but it's never easy. And if it was easy, then we'd all be doing it. Do it. Yeah. So the reason why this started was really because of COVID, because of the face mask in business that we started. We all had like time off. Our 2 other co-founders. So my brother is part of both businesses as well. And our 2 other co-founders were laid off from their job because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And it was just a perfect opportunity to all meet up and get together to work towards a business. And we've known each other for a while. Sean, for example, and I have been talking about starting a business for I don't know how many years. And this was really a time for us to do it. In terms of like knowing what people were supposed to do, I've been reading a lot of books on startups and tech startups, and like you need to have organizations. So we gave ourselves positions. I became the CEO. We have Ben who became the CTO, and then we basically started to see what we're good at and what to focus on. And we also hired a series of engineers to complement our tech side.
Mm-hmm. So you guys became the effective management team, and then you hired some data scientists and engineers to actually develop and crunch.
But we really did this. We started it on our own. We built the foundation on our own. So the 4 of us worked without any employees for 6 months, and we just started hiring recently.
Okay. Yeah.
Just to accelerate the process.
Yeah, of course, to fuel the growth, and that I understand. You can only go so far without hiring experts in that domain.
Yeah.
Unless that's what you do on a daily basis, like you're not going to be productive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so now you have a team. So you're the original 4, and you've grown the team.
We have 3. Well, we have 3 people full time, so it's not huge, but you don't need that many to. And especially the fact that the real estate development process is so slow.
Yeah.
We don't need 10 tech guys developing the platform. Mm-hmm. If 3 people are working, well, it's not 3. We actually have 5 because 2 of the co-founders are tech as well. So if those 5 guys are working their ass off, excuse my language.
It's okay. It's okay.
Then that's enough to get it going.
Mm-hmm. And because as you mentioned, like there's all this data to go collect, the data acquisition, and then there's all the technical, the connecting the APIs, and there's so many variables that I barely understand, but I could see how this can quite quickly layer up in such a manner that you really need to have experts in that field.
100%. So for example, my brother is chief data collection. He looks at all the data sources. He basically creates a bunch of robots to collect this data. Ben is creating the structure of all the data, creating the database, and then we have guys who are like connecting to the database and creating algorithms to run our machine learning algorithms on.
Okay.
And we have a front end developer who's visualizing everything.
Mm-hmm. And then you're doing the sales?
Yeah, I'm pushing for financing, so we're getting government grants, we're getting accelerators, incubators, and I'm pushing sales.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I'm sure you researched and looked into it. Is it worth for you guys to go in an accelerator or an incubator? Like,
oh yeah, for sure. We've already gotten accepted into a couple incubators.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a really good way to get some money in the business, and it's really good way to get credibility.
Yeah, and the structure and support, as you said, to give you that credibility that you've taken that startup through a diligent process to actually properly develop your product, grow it, fund it, to end up in a couple of months, couple of years with a very interesting company.
Yeah.
And so for you guys, kind of what's the plan for the next 5 years? Like, where do you want to take this to?
So we have our database is currently structured for all of the listings across Canada. So all of our data is across Canada.
Okay.
Right now we're still targeting real estate developers in Montreal, Quebec. We're moving to Toronto as well. But in the next 5 years, we're going to be targeting real estate development as still this product's main client.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, with the foundation of what we're building, we're essentially building a big brain to estimate prices of real estate across Canada. That is super valuable for many, many reasons. And just with that brain, there's a ton of things, a ton of expansion that we could do, connecting to existing listing platforms to provide them daily prices of all their listings, even to create a search engine for, is this listing undervalued? Is this listing overvalued? Or even personally for us to invest in real estate ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, multiple example. One of them for sure is if you want to invest yourself, but I'm thinking of like, a guy in Montreal who owns a condo in Edmonton and who doesn't really know, like, hey, what should he be selling for? Like, yeah, you could call a real estate broker over there, but maybe you can eventually develop a system where someone can just like input an address and be told like, hey, this is what it's worth right now.
Yeah, that's all potential. We're not focusing on that yet. Mm-hmm. We're still focusing on getting this product out there. We're in beta for our revenue optimization product. Mm-hmm. And it's probably going to take another 4 months to finalize. Okay. But our clients are still happy to work with us throughout that process.
Yeah. And it's fantastic that you've been able to keep growing and be Canada focused and not just Quebec, because that market at some point is going to saturate. You're going to get over it. But British Columbia and Ontario, I mean, just those two provinces, there must be so much potential for you guys.
Yeah. If we had just focused on Quebec, this wouldn't be worth it, if you know what I mean. Like it would be too small. Mm-hmm. You had to, even Canada, and in reality
the market is small.
Yeah, Canada is the size of California. But
could you eventually take it down to the US? I mean, as you said, once you've developed that brain and made those connections, you might have to go connect a few more red and blue wires to other databases, but the algorithm is more or less the same.
100%, and that's what we all loved about the idea day one, and it's why we all jumped on it. It's that it's very scalable. Even let's say we wanted to go to Europe, we just start collecting data. We have the same brain, maybe like you said, tweak a few knobs here and there, but it's still functional. All you need is the data, and yeah.
And I'm just thinking, like, who is it that you could partner up that has tons of data to make your life easier? And like, yeah, but then you don't want to be purchased by Google, not yet.
Not yet, but in a couple of years maybe.
Yeah. and then you can take those proceeds and then invest in real estate and go buy condos.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you, on a side note, I understand the family invest, and your family has a rather actually large real estate business, but do you invest personally?
All of my, like, personally, no, because my personal proceeds are either put into the stock market or, invested personally,
Okay.
via the stock market. But through the companies, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All real estate investments go through the family business.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, I was wondering, like, maybe with your brother, you had started to be like, hey, let's go buy a couple of sixplexes or something like that. But I guess that's not really the way you look at it.
No, yeah, it's still it's part of the big umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. And it's good because you seem to be very focused. And too many times, and I know I'm kind of like that sometimes as an entrepreneur, like I like all these ideas and I want to do a bit of everything, but the successful ones stay focused because you specialize, you get good at one thing, and then you push on your education. And congratulations for going back to school last year, because it's always a difficult decision. To once you're out of school, you start working, and then it's tough to actually 3 years later be like, I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
So you seem to have a very clear objective and a path to achieve it.
Yes, we have all been extremely focused on this goal, and it's definitely important to stay focused, or else you're gonna burn your bridges and not be able to deliver on anything. But that being said, there isn't anything wrong with reevaluating and making an educated decision to pivot. Pivoting is normal in startups, and it has to be done just, in a smart way.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You start with an idea, and then you develop it, and it's a dynamic process. Well, actually, and maybe we can kind of finish on this. I have another one or two questions, but what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs? It's the beginning of the year. A lot of people have made resolutions and goals and so on. What is it that has worked for you that you would wish others?
That has worked or has not worked?
That has worked. Like, what have you learned from your experience that's transferable to someone else who's starting as an entrepreneur?
So I'll just give my 2 cents on what has worked is that we were extremely lucky that we got into the face mask in business when, like, the demand was just insane.
Yeah.
And that's what really helped us start SquareFeet. But if I had any advice for normal times for young entrepreneurs trying to start a business, it would be to plan from the beginning. Don't invest your own money. Create a business plan. Apply to these startup company found like the university startup programs. Apply to these accelerator programs. Get a team together. Align your strategy, but really focus on external financing, government grants. There's tons and tons of opportunity with that, and anyone could really start. It's just to make the decision to stop the corporate path and get into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and you bring up a very good point. Is the financing side? It seems like too many people want to start a business thinking, hey, I've saved up $20,000 or $30,000. Let's do something with this, but they forget like how long it takes to actually properly develop a product and generate enough sales to be self-sufficient, let alone fuel growth. So I find it's an excellent advice to just say, like, just focus on I was gonna say on not just that, but on the money. How are you going to fund it? How are you going to survive for a year to 18 months?
Exactly. Like, and there's tons of programs, tons and tons of government funded programs that pay for your employees, that give you grants, that give you, like, just with, like, we've also been focusing on that as well, but we didn't start like that. We started funding it ourselves. Only recently have we really put a ton of time into getting government financing, which is way more than we ever would have put in ourselves.
Yeah.
You know,
it pushes you to go solve that business problem. The easy solution is to say, I'll put my money. The hard way is to say, I'm going to use grants and subsidies and so on and so forth to actually grow this. And it forces you to work on the business instead of in it.
And the reason why it's so good to work on government grants and financing is because you really structure your ideas and your business in a way that needs to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, then you're not going to get the government financing. And if you're not going to get government financing, you maybe shouldn't be in that business.
Yeah. And it forces you also to formalize. If you just do it for yourself, I don't really need a business plan. Yes,
exactly.
You do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man. That's been, I'm actually quite impressed with what you guys have developed over the last 7 or 8 months. In your opinion, what is it that sets apart successful entrepreneurs versus those who kind of have a great idea but never do anything with it?
Well, execution is definitely one of the most important things, but it's a mixture of a lot of things. There's the timing. That's really important. If people aren't ready to listen to your idea, you could have perfect execution and you'll still get nowhere. You know, if, for example, SquareFeet.ai, if our product is flawless and people are still not willing to look at it, then, you know, we could have perfect execution and it still wouldn't work. But it's a mixture of a lot of things, but execution is definitely on top of that list.
Yeah. I love it that you say that, because that's something we've discussed with my wife at the beginning of the year. With a lot of our objective is speed of execution. Sometimes we have an idea and we want to do it, but feel like there's too much of a time lag that happens. And so we had said that this year we would make an effort in trying to execute faster.
Yeah. One thing I love, a thought that keeps our team going. We have these team meetings to keep going every week, kind of thing, to keep ourselves on the right track. What I like to think about is small daily efforts lead to really large future outcomes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're so right. And at the beginning of the year, I was like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, it's so much work. And I was like, no, if all I need to do each day is add one item to my list.
Exactly.
And then I do it every day so far since the beginning of the year. It's only been 2-3 weeks, but it's a good way to break down like daunting tasks into like bite
pieces. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so finally, how can we help you? Like, how can our audience help you go forward?
I'd be happy to chat with anyone who wants to chat real estate tech, real estate innovation. If anyone wants to call, email, meet us, have a discussion about the future of real estate tech. Would love to hear what people have to think. We're always taking ideas, or we're always open to the conversation.
Super. I will gladly put your contact information into the show notes so anyone can reach out to you.
Great. Thank you.
Super. Look, it's been very interesting. Thank you very much for taking the time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And so everyone can check it out, SquareFeet.ai. And Jordan, thank you very much for this wonderful interview.
Yep. Thanks, Axel.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. As usual, if you like the content and you want to support us, please subscribe to the podcast, share it, leave us a rating. It really goes a long way, and it gives us a hand to reach out more people like yourself. So thank you very much to everyone, and have a wonderful day.